Hello, I'm Kerryn Powell, the Network Catalyst, and today I'm going to have a conversation with Brent Edwards. Now, Brent is my first international guest, and we met during lockdown. We connected on LinkedIn, and then because I moved my events to online, Brent arrived from Toronto at one of those events. And we quickly found that we share very similar interests in helping people to build their network and relationships. Brent is the founder of Brent Canada Experiences and a professional networking advisor to new immigrants in Canada. Brent thrives on building relationships with economic stakeholders across a broad range of industries and markets. The uniqueness of each business fuels his abundant curiosity, and he has a talent for connecting people and commercial opportunities. His passion is coaching newcomer entrepreneurs and job seekers on how to improve their professional networking skills so they can reach their potential in Canada. Welcome, Brent.
Good to see you again. It's been a while.
It's very nice to see you, and explaining how we met first on LinkedIn, and then a problem became an opportunity with COVID, and we got to have a conversation when you came to a YTM event. So it's
I've been singing your praises a few times where people have talked about examples of international networking and how kind you were to readjust the time for your event. It's been people say, "Oh, give me a good example of where networking during COVID has been beneficial for you." So your name has come up a few times.
Yours has in my.
It's been a bit of a journey to get here. But really what I do, I'm a very patriotic Canadian. I want to see my country succeed. And one of the greatest benefits we have is we have a lot of newcomers coming to the country. And I've been a newcomer with my own country because I grew up on the West Coast in Vancouver, moved to Toronto, didn't know anyone. I know how difficult it is when you're moving to a place and don't know anyone, especially if you're in business and need to build those relationships.
Mm.
So after doing some volunteer work with the Institute for Canadian Citizenship, helping to organize citizenship ceremonies for new Canadians, doing some work with the Toronto Immigrant Economic Employment Council, doing mentoring, I realized that the number one issue for new Canadians, the biggest challenge for them rebuilding their career in Canada, is a lack of professional network. And since I've spent 30 years in marketing, sales, business development, product management, I realized that this was an area that I could assist them with. And that's one of the reasons I started Brent Canada Experiences. Some advice I give to newcomers is around diversifying your portfolio of connections. So look at your relationships in some ways like a stock or an investment portfolio, and you want to be invested in these different industry sectors. And also, I think another learning would be, yes, you want to be focused, but there's so much opportunities can come from being meeting with people who are very different than yourself.
Yes.
Especially if they are like small business people are amazing at networking. It's their lifeblood, especially in referral-based businesses. So I really hadn't had a lot of connections with small business people before, but I'm learning so much from them. So those are a couple of areas I would say in terms of business. And the advice from my father: think ahead. That was his motto. Was always, think like a chess player. Think he wasn't a chess player. He was an engineer, but think ahead. Think
Yes.
ahead in terms of the relationship and where you can help people, what you can do, give back. The more you give back, the more things will come back to you. You don't know when, but it will.
I'm just such a firm believer about that. And bringing my children up, I used to always think about the consequence. And I think that's the same thing. What's the consequence of that connection that you made, or that helping that person? Not that you go into it with I've got to get something back attitude. I think that's really the wrong way. But that opportunity of, this could turn out to be something, and a conversation that I have something opened up to me that I never expected before, like this. I didn't know when I met you last year in lockdown, I didn't know we would now be doing a podcast. In fact, I didn't have a podcast.
Well, we said at some point, it's like, we could do something together. Who knew it was going to be tonight, right?
And of course, those relationships that we build need nurturing along the way. And sometimes, if a relationship is one way, it makes it very difficult to keep that relationship going. So I think relationships are something that needs to be nurtured and be aware that they take time, and it can take a lot of nurturing, but it pays off in big time. So
Yeah.
when you're building relationships and nurturing your relationships, you've sent me some excellent articles on LinkedIn, and we've exchanged blogs and things like that and connections. How else do you nurture your relationships?
Well, I think you kind of look at the relationships. There's one of the networkers I've connected with uses the example of like a bank account that you can you need to put a lot of deposits into the account before you make any withdrawals. So I think a lot of that's the nurturing component. So in terms of people that I've learned from around nurturing, like my wife is incredible with building relationships. She has relationships with girls that she went to elementary school with, and that's something that I really needed to work on my skills. So I've learned a lot by watching her and how she builds and nurtures relationships. Some of my colleagues, there's one colleague in particular who I've learned from, Laura Pacheco, and she actually, I'd worked with her years ago at Thomas Cook. She was very good at pulling people together for alumni events. And then she went like the next step, and I was out of work. I remember meeting with her. She took me to lunch, and she said, "Look, here's a spreadsheet of all my contacts. Let me know who you want me to introduce you to." And just that willingness to help. As it turned out, one of the people I had a conversation with, it went well. 2 months later, they posted a job. I went back to the same contact Laura had introduced me to, and I ended up getting the job. It's like, but it's that willing. And then she's also come out to my in-person events and assisted and helped. And she is phenomenal at networking. It's her expertise is in finance and but that's something I learned to. And I guess it's this willingness to be the first one to um, send something, be the first one to comment, provide value. That's really what it's all about.
Mm.
Be a generous networker.
Yes, they actually don't quote me on the statistics or whatever, but one of my other podcast interviews was with Peter Dempsey, and he actually had a conversation with me about that men and women have different amount of neurons, and that's why women actually are very good networkers, because they are higher on that scale of whatever it is in the brain than a male. And that's also why I run events that are for men and women, because there's so much value to network together, because men have a different outlook on life, a different outlook on business. They can be a lot
Yeah.
more cut through. Once again, I'm being general, but I think that
Mm-hmm.
men can also learn by not going straight to what car do you drive and what's your position, but getting to build a personal relationship and get to know a bit about the person before they get to talk business.
Men and women, it's like the newcomers and new Canadian established Canadians. There's so much they could learn from each other about global business and about doing business in Canada. And I want to find a way to bring more of them together because I think they could learn so much from each other. So fulfilling as well for being able to help.
Yes. So what are your three favorite ways of nurturing a relationship?
I would say working with LinkedIn is providing in terms of commentary and encouraging from a distance. There's so many things that uh, you can do that are free, but I think it's being one of the first ones to provide support. So whether someone's starting a new business, someone's starting a blog, it's being there and cheerleading from the side. I think that can make a difference. um, I think also taking the impetus to be the one to follow up. So follow up is so important in networking, but you're the one. The follow up is up to you, and if you're not following up, then you shouldn't be pointing fingers and saying why haven't they followed up with me. It's like you're the one that needs to follow up. And I think the other thing would be trying to find ways that you can connect others. So I really I think a lot of people, their default is they see differences, and I think my default DNA is to find similarities, which is kind of interesting. It's a different way of thinking than most people I've met. But I really like this matchmaking in terms of finding people who could help each other out and introducing them. I really enjoy doing that, and it's led to some interesting conversations and feedback. You're trying to find something that you've got in common that will bring the conversation forward. The example I'll use, and I know for speaking to your audience in the state of Victoria, and you probably will get this analogy a bit. So this isn't Aussie rules football. This is Canadian football, gridiron football. So it's all about moving the ball down the field. So even if you're in rugby, right, it's all about you're trying to move the ball down the field to get a touchdown or to get a try, right? So it's what can you do to advance the conversation a bit, right? It's just, and that's those questions are to advance the conversation. So eventually you can all score.